Welcome to it, sports fans. Another week back in the sports world, and sport is fully back now. It is all the way back. The Premier League top four is hotting up. Cannot wait to get to today. Manchester City, if you didn't hear it this morning, have been cleared, by the way. No longer having a two-year ban from the Champions League. So that is huge news. Absolutely huge news. We're going to talk a little bit about that. I'll talk you through FFP, capped leagues. What does salary caps actually mean? What was the point? I'll talk you through all of that. And then, of course, joining me, the lovely Woude Muller. Woude, how are you? How was your weekend?
My weekend was great. Thanks. It was really, really nice. I had my mom here. So like I said on Friday, we have a new member to my family. So I'm an aunt again. I had a nephew today. His name's Liam. Absolutely beautiful. And I can't wait to meet him. Obviously, due to stupid COVID, we can't see him. But it is what it is.
Babies in the COVID, huh?
The babies in the COVID. But besides that, it's great. Had some great rugby over the weekend. Very boring Formula One over the weekend. I know you don't mind, but yeah, all in all good.
You can just say Formula One. It's tautological to say boring Formula One. So you can just say Formula One.
You do get some very interesting races. Last weekend's race was very interesting. This weekend was not so much, but Ferrari stuck, and
okay.
both their cars crashed into each other, and they both went out of the race. I mean, how stupid can you be?
Breaks my heart. It breaks my heart to hear guys driving around a track crash into each other. That's tough stuff. All right, well, let's have a great week. We got a cool guest this Wednesday, Lee Westwood. For those of you that are into golf, really looking forward to chatting to him. So if you're into the stick game around the course, Lee Westwood, one of the greatest to ever do it. Looking forward to that. But for today, let us get to it. As I said before, big news. Big news. Man City have been let off, is what some people say. Some people say justice has been served. So Man City this morning cleared, and all they have to do is pay a 10 million euro fine, and that is it. So no longer banned from the Champions League for 2 years. What does that mean? Champions League is worth around £100 million per season to each team. That's revenue, gate income, of course, stadium revenues that they generate, and everything that comes with being in the most illustrious and biggest competition in probably world sport. Not probably, definitely the biggest competition in world sport alongside the English Premier League. So a tremendous, tremendous thing. My thing is this. What was the aim of financial fair play anyway? And the way they applied it is an absolute shambles. From UEFA to the English League to it all. Because really what they're trying to get to is parity. That's what they tell us. But there's something more insidious going on. I think we need to be clear. There are 8 or 9 football clubs that are in charge of everything. Right? Doesn't matter who they are. We all know who they are. But they want to hold on to that power. They want to hold on to that power. And essentially what they want, particularly in England, is everybody wants to avoid Rangers. Everybody wants to arrange, get away from being a Portsmouth. You know, that's what they really want to avoid. But I want to take a look at some of the leagues in the world that have this measure of a financial fair play or money cap. And essentially we know where that is. That's America, right? But the Americans have had it for over 3 decades, some of it 5 decades, some of it 7 decades in some of their sports, where the salary cap in some way or form has been involved. So what you see today is decades of refining the system to get what because they've got it right. Parity. That's what you want. The goal is parity. I'll come back to the English leagues now. Let's take a look at what's happening in America. So when we talk about salary caps, I think when you talk about America, you need to be clear. There are some leagues, or the 3 big leagues is NFL, NBA, and then, of course, the MLB. But we'll start with the NFL. The NFL have a hard cap, right? What does that mean? It's at $198 million per year this year, but that's a hard cap, the NFL. So there's no worming your way around it. We'll try and, you can go into something called luxury tax. We'll look at that just now. 198 million, that is your salary cap per season. We don't want to hear it. So what does that mean? Every single team has the same salary cap, We don't care if you're the Dallas Cowboys, who are the most valuable sports franchise in the world, or you're the Washington's team, which, I don't know, you could sell them for a bag of balls and peanuts. Everybody has the same salary cap. And of course, they negotiate what they call the CBA. So there's all the players are in, all the teams are in, because what it's about is revenue share, right? For them, it's about revenue share. Now, the Dallas Cowboys are Mavericks. Let's be very clear. They do their own thing. So they don't sell their tickets through the same agency as everybody else. And Jerry Jones says, hey, don't you worry about it. I'm going to do my own thing in Dallas. We do it bigger and better. They're the only Mavericks. Everybody else in on the revenue share. They sell all of the TV rights together. Dallas Cowboys, Jerry Jones said, get out of here. Get out of here. I'm going to do it myself. I'm worth $4 billion revenue per year. More than anybody in world sport. Phenomenal job that Jerry has done, and he is a cowboy if ever you've seen him. If you need to know what Jerry Jones is about, have a look at this year's draft. He's done it from his yacht. Everybody else is in a building. Jerry Jones on a yacht. My point is this, hard cap, so pretty clear. Parity in that league. Doesn't matter how much you make. Doesn't matter how rich your owner is. Everybody can pay their players the same. Let's go to the next league. The NBA. This you actually need an aeronautical engineering degree to understand the NBA's salary cap. So there's something called a soft cap. So right now it stands at 109 million. So you got 12 guys, remember. It's not like the NFL where you got a 52, 53 deep roster. You got 12 guys in the NBA. $109 million, make it work. But it's not capped purely at 109 million. There's a soft cap. So you can go to something called luxury tax. For our podcast audience, okay, look, you're going to have to come join us on YouTube. I'm not going to run through the whole thing. But essentially, you're taxed for every dollar that you go over the salary cap. So all teams, you look at how's it possible to have Klay Thompson, have Kevin Durant, and all these guys, Draymond Green, right? How's it possible to have those guys on one team? It's called salary luxury. The NBA it's a nightmare. But essentially, when you go over $20 million, right, you're getting taxed $3 per dollar you're over the salary cap. And now you can imagine when you got to pay Klay Thompson, you got to pay Draymond Green, you got to pay Kevin Durant. You're paying these guys $40 million with $109 million cap. You got to make up 12 guys. It's going to add up. So soft cap for them. So parity league, kind of. But if you've got rich owners, they'll pay the luxury tax. Let's go to the most ridiculous of all of them. Right? The MLB essentially has no cap. Right? They have no cap. What can happen here is that you've got a cap of, you can go up to $210 million per year. But once you cross that threshold, right? When you cross that threshold, you start paying big tax dollars. And just so you know what happens with the tax, in MLB, it's different from NBA. But essentially what happens to the luxury tax is, number one, it goes back to the CBA, so the Players Association. They look after retired players, etc. So about 50% of it goes back there. 50% of it goes to other things. So it goes back to the league, and then it gets distributed amongst the teams who don't go over the salary cap. But the point of the salary cap, ideally in all three sports, is we want some parity. But in Major League Baseball, they don't care. The Yankees, they're going to pay because they want to win. Everybody who pays wins. You want to pay Bryce Harper $300 million guaranteed? You most likely are sort of strapping yourself, but you want to pay, you're going to win. Simple as that. MLB, no salary cap. It's mental, right? But the other two leagues, it matters. It matters. That cap is for parity. Let's go back. I'm going to go back to UEFA and what they were trying to do and why it's ridiculous. For me, if you're going to have a salary cap, and I'll say it now, I'll say it again. Everybody has to relinquish every player's contract, right? First, you relinquish all the contracts, so no player is with any team. Right, now we have an open lottery system. Everybody gets to bid for every player with an FFP number. But here's what I would suggest. For 5 years, they should let every single team in Europe go and lobby to investors. So it doesn't matter who you are. If you're Leicester, you can go to China, you can go to Italy, you can go to Moldova. I don't care where you go. Go and find yourself an investor. And for 5 years, have at it. Because the way it works with FFP in European football isn't necessarily about parity. It's about how much revenue you make. Now, it's ridiculous. Everybody knows Bayern Munich are going to make more money than Burnley. We all know that. So that's not about parity. That's about crystallizing power. Everybody knows Manchester United, purely based on revenue, are going to make far more money than Norwich. There's no parity there. So it's dumb. It is dumb because now that we know that the point is not parity, the point is the powers that are must stay. And their argument is, oh, we don't want Rangers, we don't want Portsmouth. Nonsense. If it's about business, if it is about business, businesses go defunct all the time. If it's about the open market, if it's about allowing people to gamble, what we love in big business, this is why Silicon Valley is so great. Let people gamble. And people say, oh, what about the stability of clubs and what they mean to the communities? Hey, businesses fail all the time. I have somebody who told me 90% of businesses fail within their first year. If you're not rich enough, get out. There's lots of billionaires. But get out. Listen, we can legislate, keep rules, but I'm sorry, I have no time for this. It's not about parity. The powers that be are staying in power. So as far as I'm concerned, let every club in the world for 5 years, if you're going to try and do financial fair play, for 5 years, every club in the world goes out and finds investors. So where are we now? 2020. At the end of the 2025 season, we say, okay, guys, here's the salary cap. But now at least you've given Wolves, you've given Leicester, you've given whoever, Burnley. Burnley may have a suitor in China who may say, hey, you know what? I value this at $2 billion. I'll invest, or 2 billion pounds. I'll invest, and let's have a go at it. And then everybody gets Saudi investment. Everybody gets Persian investment. Then it's about parity. As it stands now, I think it was stupid to ban Man City anyway. All that matters is Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Man United. They just want to stay in power. So I could not be happier that Man City's decision got turned over, because in order for us to have the best league, which football is, it's the best entertainment in the world, let everybody in. More money, better, higher quality squads across the board. I don't want everybody sitting on the bench. I don't want Mbappe on the bench for Real Madrid next season. That's very possible. I don't want Isco sitting on the bench at Real Madrid. Imagine having Isco at Stoke on 200,000 pounds a week. Imagine that. Imagine Asensio at Norwich. Imagine Norwich in the Champions League because some Saudi billionaire kid has come across and he said, hey, we're going to do this thing. That's parity. Financial fair play as it is right now does not bring parity. It crystallizes power. And when you crystallize power, it's no good because the new kids aren't allowed in. And we know the benefit. Roman Abramovich, before these stupid rules came along, changed the game. It was just Man United, Arsenal. He changed the game. He opened it for everybody. Man City came along. And the Premier League's revenues have continued to go from strength to strength. 5 million when Roman Abramovich came in a year. 5 billion when Abramovich came in for TV rights. 8 billion now. Let's get to parity. Open it up to the world. Stop this FFP nonsense. Unless you take my suggestion, in 5 years' time, we have a salary cap for everybody. But everybody now, you go and pitch to the world. Find your billionaire owner, get your revenues up so that in 5 years' time, everybody's earning that crazy Saudi money. I think it's stupid now. And here's how I know it's stupid. UEFA, the Premier League, and the Football League, all three have different rules for financial fair play. That tells you it's a shambles. It's not about parity. They don't know what's going on. I'm afraid businesses go out of business all the time. They go defunct all the time. I'm out. I'd love to know what people think of FFP. Maybe you support a big club. Of course, you might say, hey, City should have been punished. They broke the rules. I bet Man United fans, I bet maybe a few Arsenal fans, they might feel, oof. But as a Chelsea fan, I want to tell you, should be opening it up more. I want to see Newcastle open it up. I want to see Newcastle invest £1 billion next year. I want to see Dani Alves at Newcastle. I want to see Sergio Ramos at Newcastle. But it's not possible right now because the big boys are greedy. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Man United, greedy. Greedy. It's greed. This financial fair play is nonsense. It's not about financial fair play or being fit and proper, as the English Premier League tell you. It's about crystallizing power. That's all it's about. Let's not complicate it. People hate Man City because Man City are breaking down the powers that be. Bayern Munich, Real Madrid, Man United. That's the real big three. They'd like to keep their seats at the big table. Stop it. It's silly. Love to know what you think. Love to know what you think. Listen, we got Q&A coming up. Send your questions in following the skip pass. We will take your questions on FFP. I will take your questions on anything. Speaking of which, what a great weekend of rugby. Woude had said it was going to be a great weekend of rugby. It delivered. Or maybe it didn't. Let's see what Woude's got to say in the skip pass.
Yes, Muller, it did deliver. I'm not going to be a Grinch and hate everything that happened over the weekend. Don't worry. So I started with the Australian games again, and I think I am being a little bit harsh and hard on the Australian teams because yes, overall Australian rugby and the quality of what we're getting from them is not great, but it doesn't mean that there are really standout players and players that are actually delivering and playing quite well. Maybe it's easier for them to look really good because the rest of them are just so bad. But still, I think they're actually not all bad. So we spoke about it on Friday. Obviously, the Reds and Rebels had a draw. The Waratahs played the Force being back in Super Rugby for the first time since 2017. And it was actually quite interesting because the Force led 3/4 of the way, which they weren't given much of a chance before the game. So this was actually quite interesting. In the end, the Waratahs did win 24-13, which is not surprising. But yeah, I think the Force actually did a little bit better than people expected and gave them a chance to. Hurricanes, Highlanders, that was a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be. 17-11 to the Hurricanes. I thought the Highlanders really defended really, really well to keep it that close. The Hurricanes pack was incredible. They really upped their lineouts. They had 100% lineout rate, so that's brilliant. And then obviously there were also 2 tries that were disallowed. So if any of you think, please let me know what you think of those tries that were disallowed. Was it obstruction? Was it another obstruction? When was Aaron Smith for the Highlanders? So it was quite interesting. It could have changed the whole game. So I'm trying to see what people think about it. So let me know. And then obviously the game of the weekend for me, the Crusaders and the Blues. So so Crusaders haven't lost a game since 2017, the 16th round of 2017. This is just how absolutely powerful they are. And we don't have to carry on about how amazing they are and how well they're coached and what a well-oiled machine they are. They're just really good. The Blues actually played really well. I thought they packed it really well against the Crusaders. They didn't really offer the Crusaders much in the first half. And the Crusaders only scored after the 27th minute. And that was a penalty. Not often that happens to the Crusaders, that they only score that late into a game. So good on the Blues for that one. But Mbolelo and I we spoke about this on Friday, specifically about Barrett. And we were talking about how is Barrett going to move into first receiver or not? Not even 1 minute into the game, and he was in first receiver. That's how much control he wants to have over a game, knowing how good Mo'unga is. And everyone is like, oh no, Mo'unga was really brilliant because he has a brilliant Crusaders pack in front of him. Guys, just stop it. Barrett is not going to perform that way with better pack in front of him. So stop using this excuse of the fact that Mo'unga is outshining him because of pack. He is just outshining him. He's just a better fly half at the moment. So stop trying to compare these 2 players to each other. It just actually irritates me. But then I think we also can't talk about the games. We have to talk about Eno's charge down of Otero Black's conversion. That was quite an interesting one. I mean, how much do you have to faff around for someone to charge down a conversion right in front of the pole? I don't know, Mbolelo, I don't know if you saw that and what you think of that, but I just think that was, you're right in front of the poles. You didn't really need to do much. Put the ball down and kick it. And you managed to get a charge down.
I did see it. It's ridiculous. Like, but this is the Crusaders, right? This is what separates good and great, Woude. As much as people want to laugh at Tara Black, is that the little things. It's about details at the top, and the Crusaders are so good that I bet you they are even working on that. Like, guys, somebody keeps an eye, and I mean, Enor's probably their quickest guy is, all right, you're going to be our chaser. I bet they've even thought that through. So this is what makes them great, that the details, right?
But then also, if you want to talk about great, is we have to talk about Mohanga's dribble restart and then regaining it and gaining all that. I mean, no other team would actually think about doing this. So I don't know if it is Scott Robinson's brilliance or if this is just Mohanga, or if Robertson is bringing this out in Mohanga and giving him this opportunity to do crazy things and see if they're going to work or not. No one would ever have expected any team to do that. And that was just brilliant. Yeah. And what makes Mohanga even more brilliant, is that the pass that he gave out when Drummond scored his try, where he literally just holds it that little bit longer to just create more space for the guys on the outside. And they just have so much freedom to do what they want to do. They're willing to make mistakes. This is what I love about New Zealand rugby, is that they're willing to make mistakes, work on it, and fix it. And the Blues, I think, they didn't fail at anything. I thought they really put up a strong contest against the Crusaders. And yes, everyone knows the Crusaders are the strongest team, but I don't think the Blues failed at anything. What they can do now is they can go back and say, these are not just the things that we can make better. And I think the Blues will become a really great team that's going to be very competitive.
I totally agree. I think, we saw the value of coaching. The Crusaders, again, it always feels like they're in the right place. So when you feel like people are trusting a system, Moanga can try those types of things because he knows that people are going to be where they need to be if things go wrong. So it's the beauty of having structure, right? So, hey, man, Woude, I think you've nailed it. I think the Crusaders are just something else.
One thing that I do think poor Ian Foster is going to have quite a difficult time with picking his outside backs. I mean, you have Ben Lamb, you've got George Brett, you've got Caleb Clark, you've got Sever Reese. How do you pick a guy to play on your wing? Who do you pick with such solid guys? And then obviously when you get to the centers and then you get to the back, David Avili really did not impress me. I thought his defense was absolutely shocking. And this is first choice that we've had for the All Blacks. And then you bring Will Jordan on off the bench and immediately scores a try. But David Avili was involved in both the tries that the Blues scored, and he missed both those tackles. So if you as a fullback can't make those crucial tackles, do you deserve to be on that field? And especially be the starter? So I think Scott Robinson really needs to go look at that, because I don't think David Avili is not upping it for me. So, yeah. So I'm going to end with that. I'm actually going to get to my team of the week because I think, I went with the props. I actually went with Hodgman and Fire Musili from the Rebels. So if you can actually see, I think I need to justify a little bit what is actually going on here because I think I gave a few people a chance this week. I think for Musili from the Rebels was absolutely brilliant. And if you guys haven't watched the highlights of him playing, go Google it, go onto YouTube. He had such an explosive game. He had 9 runs, 48 meters for a prop, 48 meters, a clean break, defender beaten, 7 out of 8 tackles, and he was very solid in that scrum. He really deserves, so please go check that out. I went with Iomua Hooker from the Hurricanes. Also, I think this was his best game that he played for the Hurricanes up until now. He had to stand in for Dane Coles, who was injured. He had 100% line-out rate, 11 runs, 63 meters for a hooker. So you can see now how these roles are changing. You don't have that typical prop who just kind of 1 meter, 1 run kind of thing that they're doing. They're actually becoming so much more agile than what they used to be. Locks, I went with Salakaya Lotu from the Reds. He was absolutely brilliant in the line-out. He had 5 line-out wins, a line-out steal. So I thought he was a great tackle rate. And Whitelock on the other side, pretty solid. We don't have to say much about him. My loose forwards, I actually went with 3 Australians. Now, not a lot of people would actually agree with this because I do think the loose forwards in the New Zealand games were absolutely brilliant, but you kind of expect them to be good. With these guys, they're actually quite impressed. Harry Wilson from the Reds, Michael Hooper from the Waratahs, obviously seen the moment that he's not captain anymore, it seems that he's playing much better. Michael Hooper was the best in the Waratahs side, 15 out of 15 tackles, 14 runs, 58 meters, two turnovers, and he had no penalties. So maybe it shouldn't be captain. And then I went to Stander from the Force. Now, I don't think even of you guys probably have heard this guy's name, and I haven't, until I saw him play over the weekend, and he made quite an impression. And he actually topped the running meters for his side in this match. So Harry Wilson also 16 out of 18 tackles. That's what you want from your loose forwards. 19 runs, 57 meters. So I thought those Australian loose forwards really did quite well, which is good news for Australian rugby. Scrum off, TJ Perenara. Could argue for Aaron Smith there. You could say if Aaron had the Hurricanes pack in front of him, he would have been very different. TJ did score a try. He had really good tackles, 19 passes, 90 passes. So he could really distribute that ball. So his work rate was just incredible. And I think it was such a good matchup between Aaron Smith and TJ Perenara. But I think he won this contest. Fly off, we don't need to say anything more about Richie Mo'unga. Midfield, you could argue for a few players there. I went with Ricky Ioane. He's such a strong player in that midfield. You can't play without him anymore. He literally has to carry three guys, like three defenders when he does any carry. It's such a strong carry to score his try. I love him in the midfield. And then I went with Mate again. He was a bit back on his defense. He had only made 3 out of 3 tackles. At least he had 100% tackle rate. But he just, every time he has the ball, he draws in so many defenders to bring him down that he's just such an asset in that midfield. And then it opens up the field so much. So I really think he's just upping it, and he topped the run meter charge this week, across all teams. So I'm starting to like him more. I know, Molelo, you don't like him because of his defense stats, but if that's one thing that he can work on in the future, he'll be such a great guy and a force to be reckoned with in the midfield. Outside backs, I went with 3 wings. I don't think any of the fullbacks did incredibly well. I went with George Bridge, who's solid. And I think that's one thing that you will always say about Bridge. He's solid. He's not amazing. He's not great. But in the Crusaders setup, he does so well because it suits him so well. Will I pick him over Ben Lamb for the All Black side? Probably not. I would rather want that big 11 in my side. But for what he has to do in the Crusaders side and having those people around him, he works with it so well. Went with Mark Talia. Obviously, he was a very strong contender in that blue side. He did brilliantly for them. And then I think Cobus van Wyk deserves a mention. He's been pretty solid in all the matches that he's played for the Hurricanes. He did not have a great start against the Chiefs, but for the last few weekends, he's really been upping. He's been scoring tries. He's been running well. So I really think he deserves a mention in my team at some point, and I think this weekend was the one for him. So that's my team of the week. I would love to know what you guys think. Please disagree with me, and I will tell you why I didn't pick those players. But yeah, for me that was it, and I love the players. One thing that did bother me, and Umbelelo, you can definitely maybe help me with this, is that the refereeing is starting to really irritate me. The regulations around the breakdown was absolutely great in the beginning, but now it just seems like the refs are even like knowing not even less what's going on around the breakdown than they did in the first few weeks. We're in week 5, we're halfway through. Surely by now you should have figured out what you should go for and what not. So, I mean, there was one specific incident with Plummer from the Blues Crusaders game where he was literally, he made a tackle, he started rolling away. He couldn't roll away anymore. He's not interfering with the game at all. The scrum half is pinning him down on their side, and there's a penalty against the Blues. How does that make sense? And now the scrum halves are just going to start doing that more and more because they realize that they're getting penalties now against the other team if they're pinning that guy down. They literally could not go anywhere. So now you want to make the game faster. You want to make the game better, but you're blowing up for things like this is not interfering with the game at all. So
it's silly.
No.
It's silly because rugby's got enough rules. We should be taking rules away from rugby, not adding. There's a reason rugby doesn't spread as an international game. It's too complicated already. Stop making it more complicated. Like, geez. So somebody once said something great to me. Is in life in general. So not just sport, but I mean, we were talking about sport, but he's a really, really successful businessman. Don't have too many rules. And the reason he says don't have too many rules is once you have too many rules, you have to stick to them. I mean, the litany of rules in rugby it's outrageous now. You got to have a PhD in astrophysics. It's mental. I'm with you, Woude. It's nuts.
I'm literally watching this game. Like,
that situation was crazy. That situation was like Usman pinning down Masvidal, right? The way Perinara was literally kneeing the guy in the jugular. What's the guy supposed to do?
Yeah, well, Finley Christie, wasn't it? Finley, for the Drummond, actually.
God,
on
it was mental.
But, no, and it happened a few times in this game. Again, it happened on a Crusaders player. So I don't know what they're going to do around that. I'm very much for the offside rule. Make sure that the guys are onside so you don't have that big rush defense. Well, I'm all for that, but when a player literally can't roll away, his arms are up in the air, he's not interfering with the game. Should we really be blowing that up? Should we really be stopping the game all the time and just upping the penalty count? So that's worth talking about, I think. Yeah.
Great question. Yeah. Well, let's see what people think. I'm with you. Rugby's already got too many rules, but I think you're making great points. We saw it on the weekend. Let's see how this thing shakes out, man. Let's see how this shakes out. And I think New Zealand are in a good place. It's almost, for them, it's a bit unfair for everyone else. It's almost like trials for them now, right? Is they can kind of see, okay, this guy at outside center against this guy. Oh, that works. That doesn't work. It's almost